And we've discussed a lot of amazing key points that would be impossible to summarize them in a minute or two. But I'd say that a few things really stood out. One thing is the fact that we're moving towards a more blended reality, more blended learning. So yes, there are things that are still going to happen on the ground in real life, but there are things that need to be transitioned to online learning. And from that stems another insight, which is how and what and why we are going to explore. In that sense, it's sort of an application of the golden circle. So why, how, and what? Why are we teaching? Why are we teaching this particular discipline? That's very important to point out, because there's self-motivation, and independent learning requires a lot of self-motivation. So learners need to understand, why is it that I'm learning this? And they also need to be engaged in the process. So how am I learning this? What are the tools that the teacher is using? What are the experiences that I am engaged in order to make the best out of that learning experience? And last but not least, there's the actual content that is provided online. What type of content? Is it creative? Is it innovative? I think we had a great discussion with you, Aryan, about creativity and innovation when it comes to learning, and to also redesigning the learning experience from the teacher's perspective. We talked a lot, and this is something that Janice talked about quite a lot, which is the importance of multi-stakeholder collaboration. We can no longer imagine education as this silo where we just have the learners and the teachers. We need to expand that circle. And in the discussion, we expanded it to parents as well. But we can also expand it further and talk about the private sector and the government and different countries and different individuals from different parts of the world. And this is one very important thing in the 21st century. We live in a global world, and we are much more connected than ever before. And COVID-19 proved how connected we are in a rather negative way. But in front of that, we have another positive story to tell, which is the power of connectivity and how we can use that in favor of a more advanced education for 21st century. So blended, well-defined from why, how, what, multi-stakeholder, and so many more ideas. I really don't know where to start or how to continue this.
And Alexandra, what are the core skills that you think are essential in times to come? So post-COVID world, what are the top skills that teachers or schools should be fostering?
Well, definitely the 21st century skills. So we're talking about the 4Cs: critical thinking, collaboration and communication, and creativity. And innovative thinking. These are crucial when it comes to really redesigning the way we experience learning and redesign the way we experience our professional experience afterwards, because the connection between the two is very strong. I'd really want to add something that is very important, which stems from the VUCA model. So volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And we live in a world that is constantly pushing us away from our comfort zone, and we have to accept that. The learners have to accept that. The teachers have to accept that. The parents have to accept that. Everybody has to accept that. And the power of adaptability in these situations where there's a very complex event that is happening, we need to understand it. There's a very complex lesson, we need to break it down into easy parts. We need to embrace and accept that things can be complex and that things can be ambiguous and might not be clear. Even for learners, for 16, 17, 18-year-old learners who want to go out there in life and explore life, even young adults who are engaged in online programs right now and not knowing how things are going to evolve in the future. We live in an environment of high ambiguity, high uncertainty, and we need to become the adaptable human beings that we already are. But we need to enhance that skill of adaptability, especially when there's so much entropy and chaos surrounding us, as we've been exploring. And this requires us, and requires an acceptance of change and a shift in mindset. And this is also something that is very important that we need to explore, which is a growth mindset. If we embrace our lives in general, from the perspective of victimhood. If we tell ourselves a negative story, we will get one result. And if we tell ourselves a positive story, so a story of redemption in terms of personal narratives, we will end up with a completely different, much more interesting, much better result that is aligned with who we are. And I think alongside this growth mindset and personal narrative comes a person-centered approach. So we live in a century where we have so much available to us, so much technology-wise, people-wise. We can meet people from all over the world from the comfort of our homes. And I think what's been happening for the past 2 months and a half is a perfect example of that. If we want to use these tools, these opportunities, to the best of their potential, we need to embrace self-actualization. And we need to understand that there's a purpose for each and every one of us, a personal purpose. And it comes also with flexibility, because we need to be flexible enough as educators to allow these individualities, to allow these idiosyncrasies to express themselves and to actualize in the real world. So these are a lot of ideas. They could be skills, soft skills. They are more related to the mindset. They are more related to the attitudes and behaviors. But it's the combination of things. It's that complexity, actually, that gives the power to our learning experiences.
You have come up with a very interesting project for educators and learners. Could you just tell me a bit about it? Because this sounds very exciting when I heard from you.
That is correct. The project's called is Ignite, because the purpose is to ignite sparks of learning. And what we came to realize at Persed with our learners is that the format that is usually followed on the ground cannot be applied online. That's one thing. And second thing, that there are things that we can do offline and that we might have used once or twice sporadically can be used online. And these are very simple tools that we usually know about, but perhaps haven't really explored the depth of. The icebreakers. In this case, we can call them screen breakers because we're beyond a screen. And these igniters have a purpose, which is to spark energy, productivity, and focus in the online learning experience. They could be starting the learning experience. They could be tackling an issue specifically throughout the process when the teacher is doing some energy sensing and he or she feels that there's a drop in energy and we need to lift that up so that the students can re-engage with the content. Or it can happen at the end as a closure, as a social, enjoyable closure. And they are based specifically on 3 pillars: a cognitive one, a social one, social emotional one, and a sensory motor one. And by tackling into these 3 igniters, we can successfully allow the learners to really bring out the best of their thinking, the best of their engagement through the power of social emotional learning, and the best of their presence and energy because of that sensory motor, either relaxation or energy boosting. And so by exploring all these igniters, by allowing the students to interact with each other and with the facilitator, and I insist on the word facilitator because it's not just communicating knowledge, it's creating a space for exploration. And igniters, they optimize the creation of that space of exploration. And so we've tested it with our students. We've been testing it for the past 4 months now. And we're soon launching an online version through our platforms on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and of course on our website. I believe you're muted, Aryan.
That's lovely, Alexandra. I'm so sorry I was on mute. So my final question to you before we conclude this chat, what are the 3 major skills that teachers will have to have post-COVID that they don't have right now? So they may be having, but majority of them might be missing the mark or might be overlooking these 3 skills. What would they be if you have to highlight?
Number 1, is adaptability and embracing failure. There's a culture of we cannot fail, we are teachers because we have students in front of us. And that's absolutely true because there are lives, there are minds who are there to support you. But we're not talking about failing at a scale like the entire year or the entire generation is facing failure. But by building small blocks of experiments, one session every time, and trying to understand, to do some energy sensing, some feedback gathering, in order to understand what exactly works for my students, what exactly functions at the in the best possible way. Because not all students are the same. And in this case, we cannot go into standardization. We really need to allow for the personal aspect to flourish. And from that perspective, there are some sessions that are going to be better than others because they have used certain tools, because they have been approached in a certain way. Perhaps it was in a workshop format, there were some breakout rooms, perhaps because it was more peer-to-peer. And so by embracing the experimentation, the teachers would be able to extract lessons and then build much more elaborate models of learning and of teaching. So the first thing is to accept that there's a certain degree of failure on a very small scale that will allow us to take insights and use those insights through the power of lean and iteration in order to improve the process. Now, the second thing that I would say is technology, the use of technology. Teachers have used technology before, but at a smaller scale, it was within the classroom for certain tools. But now this is amplified by the current crisis and by the distance that is widening in the physical world between the teacher on one hand and the students on the other hand, but also between the teachers and the administration and so on and so forth. So we were in a very closed environment and now we're in a very sparse environment. And what really binds us together, the bridge between us, is technology. And so it's very important from a very technical perspective and very technical skills, which is to explore the power of technology and what technology can offer us in terms of tools, in terms of platforms, in terms of strategies that can facilitate the experience in all its different ways. So we have first mindset with ambiguity, uncertainty, flexibility, enhanced by a love of failure, The second one being the technical skills. And the third one, which is essential, it's creativity. And it's perhaps one of my favorites because creativity can drive so much innovation. It can completely reinvent the processes that we are doing. And by being open enough to some failures, and by being curious enough to explore different opportunities that technology has provided us, we can create a completely different world of education and learning for our students. But that requires some gym. So we have a gym for the body, but we also have a gym for the mind and for creativity, where we can create connections more effectively by exercising this creativity muscles and trying as much as possible to engage in creativity and innovation. Design thinking is very efficient as a collaborative tool. There are some great creativity exercises that can be done. We provide actually workshop on creativity as well, because we believe in the importance of creativity and of nurturing that on the personal level, but also on a collective level. So the teachers with each other, the teachers with the students, all of them with the parents, with the community. Really, creativity has no limit. And the more we explore its power, the better we can reinvent the next phase of learning and education.
Absolutely, Alexandra. Hello.
Yes.
I'm audible. That was
You are, yes.
absolutely fireside. Brilliant. And I'm so excited about your project, and I wish you all the best for it in the coming days. So thank you so much, Alexandra, for having a chat with me. Wish you all the best and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Aryan, and thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.